It's a funny old world when the pleas of pensioners, farmers, and shopkeepers fall on deaf ears, but a Labour Chancellor flies to Davos to break the news that she's listened to the concerns of the non-dom community and will be watering down her assault on their tax arrangements. Now, I could just end there, frankly. I could just leave you to mull over that little encapsulation of the state of things. But there's plenty to discuss this week, including those non-dom reforms. So, welcome to the Week in Business with me, Christian May. So let's take a look at the mega rich, and we can start with the news that nearly 11,000 millionaires left the UK in 2024, many of whom would have had non-dom status, which protects ultra-rich foreign nationals from paying tax in the UK on their overseas earnings and wealth. At least that's how it worked for about 200 years before the government followed through with its commitment to end that special status, building on work that began under the previous government. Now, in case you're of the view that this country can do perfectly well without the globally mobile mega-rich, thank you very much, consider that research from the Adam Smith Institute this week calculated that between them, those 11,000 newly departed millionaires paid the same amount in tax as 500,000 average UK taxpayers, meaning the Treasury will need to find 500,000 new taxpayers to make up for that loss. Now, that's quite a chunk of change, and perhaps explains why the Chancellor is looking again at some of the rules she announced in her budget. But this is closing the stable door after the thoroughbreds have bolted. Wealth advisors have told City AM this week that the tweaks are too little, too late. But there is something else we can take from the Chancellor's exercise in damage limitation, and it's important. A crack has opened up in the budget. Rachel Reeves says she'll table amendments to her own finance bill to accommodate the changes to the non-dom rules, and so a precedent is being set. Changes can be made, partial U-turns can be considered, and this has not gone unnoticed. Farming groups last night jumped at the chance to say, well, what about us? Their argument goes that as the new inheritance rules on family farms have been properly scrutinised, it's right and proper now that the government rows back on that policy. Now, in this battle, the farmers have some unlikely new allies, the country's biggest supermarkets. Lidl, Tesco and Aldi have joined Asda in demanding a consultation into the hugely controversial decision to levy inheritance taxes on family farms, warning that the policy risks smashing the confidence of British farmers and undermining their ability to invest, with grave consequences for food security and the rural economy. Now, they say the policy should be paused while a proper review is carried out, and the government should listen to them. Supermarkets, of course, are facing their own difficulties thanks to government policy. Sainsbury's this week announced 3,000 job cuts in response to the rise in national insurance and labour costs, and they are not alone. Unemployment has risen as businesses put into action what they've been long telling economic surveys. The budget has made it harder and more expensive to employ people, so they'll have to employ fewer people, in addition to raising prices and cutting their costs elsewhere. This was entirely predictable and therefore entirely avoidable. Now, just today, the latest red flag alert issued by insolvency specialists Begbie's Trainer reveals that the number of companies facing critical financial distress has climbed 50% since the budget, with 46,000 firms entering distress in the last quarter of last year, and hospitality and retail businesses are suffering the most. So it's been another week in which the government promises growth tomorrow while ignoring its death throes today. Big moves on infrastructure investment, including new runways at our major airports and regulatory changes to stop environmental concerns from holding up new house building, are excellent ideas. But they weren't in Labour's manifesto, which devoted exactly 20 words to the aviation sector, focusing on the promotion of sustainable fuel. So either they always planned to back airport expansion but decided to keep it a secret, or they've reached for the policy now because they're in desperate need for some pro-growth news. Either way, it doesn't exactly speak to the existence of a coherent economic strategy. I can't shake the idea that they're making this up as they go along. And if that's the case, well then, we're in even more trouble than I thought, because this is not the time to not have a plan. Warning lights are flashing red. Unemployment is rising. Business and consumer confidence have crashed. It is tough out there. It remains the case that this is a brilliant country, powered by exceptional businesses, entrepreneurs, founders, farmers, risk takers and shopkeepers, but the government has taken them for granted and is now taking them for fools. On that note, I'll say have a good weekend. Stay up to date and in the know with the City AM app, and I'll see you here next week.